Hello, welcome to this week's video, another final swing video. I know I only recorded one maybe 2 weeks ago, and some of this footage is from that video. It's been heavily edited and reduced down. It's just to go over some of the stuff that I did in the last video, so if people are only tuning into this one, they don't have to go and watch the other one to see both. If I wanted watch time, that would have been a smart thing to do, but I wanted to make sure this video actually had some interesting content to it, so I've just chucked it all in here as well. If you have already seen all this, skip to 4:17, that's when I do the new modifications, like from the neck and the paint. But otherwise, yeah, here we go. Again, always bring in hot water. If you're not going to do any like heavy modifications to your figures, hot water at least works just to soften up the joints and get them working the way they should. Also works for heads that won't pop off like this one. Leave it in there for about 30 seconds. I use like fresh out of the kettle level boiling. I know a lot of people say that can be too hot and it can damage paint. I personally never had an issue with it, but you know, some people recommend leaving it 30 seconds before you use it. I suppose for me I do leave it 30 seconds because I carry it from downstairs to upstairs. Yeah, using hot water just to separate some of the joints out. So what I'm going to do here is try and remove, I'm going to start by removing the biceps. And you can see I do struggle a bit with removing that and I have to go and heat it up a bit more. Now there are points where I occasionally use a heat gun. For the most part, hot water was just fine for this one. And I don't use a heat gun because the water isn't hot enough. I use it because the water cools down, I don't have to stop filming and go and get another one. So here you can see I've actually managed to get the shoulder joint out. And what I'm doing here is I'm just cutting off all of the excess. All these ridges. And what this will do is it will stop it catching so much, and it should stop the twisting and like the tearing that you get with this joint. It obviously won't strengthen it just for the pulling up, but it does stop the worry of shearing it by rotating the bicep if the joint's too tight. And what I'm doing here is I am making the joint sit in an awkward position, so in between the detents. So this is the place where like it avoids trying to lock up, because obviously it clicks one way or the other. This is me forcing it in between those so that it softens the detents.
This is like the most.
This is also how to remove the restrictor, and this will fix the butterfly movement completely, so you get all your range of butterfly back. I still don't know why they put that in there. And this is how I fixed the hips. Exactly the same way as the biceps. And once again, I don't know why they put such heavy detents on things. They work fine without detents. They don't need them. Clearly they can do tolerances because they've done ball joints for heads for years without having these ridges. Again, I don't know what's happened recently with their tolerances and things on plastics. It's absolutely way past me. So obviously not much to see. This doesn't change any of the physical appearance of the figure. It just changes the way it works. I did also scuff my figure, trying to force some movement out of it. That's not from using the butterfly joint, that's just from me forcing it the wrong way by accident. But you can see there just how much more range you get compared to just out of the packaging. And these joints are absolutely great once you've modified them. I know a lot of people have said that they're fine for them out of the packaging. A lot of people have said that theirs broke straight away. Again, this is the issue with quality control and Hasbro's lack of. Also, barely any movement in the neck, so I did go and use a scalpel just to kind of take out that excess material and to carve just a little groove in the back of the neck. Like they did for the Renew Your Vows 2-pack Spider-Man. That body mold has it, the retro body mold has the cut in the back of the neck. I feel like it should have just been standard at this point. Because obviously it gives a lot more range, you can actually get him to look up properly. And it doesn't make that much of a difference to the overall look of the figure. Like, you can see it's fairly hidden, it's not immediately noticeable, so it's a simple modification that gets you so much more range. Now, I overheated this with my heat gun, and you can see the mold lines and the mold seams popping back up here. This was such a shame. This was me trying to pop the body off to do a modification in the torso. I could not get it off. I overheated it so much that it warped the plastic. Yeah, this is entirely my bad. I did overheat the figure. So bring in some sandpaper to prep it for painting. I did actually fill some of those divots with super glue just to cover it over, and then obviously with the sandpaper I smoothed it out a little bit as well. This is just me prepping the blue to take the new paint that I'm going to be putting on it. I originally planned on using that Posca pen that I showed in the last video. It did not work. It probably would have worked, but the colour was entirely wrong and I wasn't happy with it. This is just a little makeshift stand I've built for painting, just kebab sticks, crocodile clips and some cardboard that I've stuck together. Now for this airbrush paint I used a matte black. You should really use gloss black, but I used matte black because it's all I had to hand. And then I went to the dodgiest back alley I could go with my airbrush. This is the metallic blue I used. I did have to thin it down with some airbrush thinner, but it can also be brushed on, which is great, and you'll see me do that later. You can see just how nice this is, even just on the first coat. I did do 4 coats of this just to make sure it was a nice solid colour to it without any imperfections. And again, you'll see later just how nicely this works. It has that really nice sheen to it. I did also use a clear lacquer over the top. I used just a Halford's lacquer, gloss lacquer to give it a nice shine. This is it without the lacquer on. I did forget to show you what can of lacquer I used. But it's just Halford's standard clear lacquer. And now here it is, all put back together. The nice gloss blue. And this is how the figure should have come to begin with. Joints in working order, no restrictions in the articulation. Paint job's really durable because I used the clear lacquer. So it survives a good fall. But yeah, I did want to repaint the red in this video. Not to make it a different colour of red, but to thin out those black lines because they are a little bit too bold. You can see I also went and repainted the back logo because obviously I painted over it with the blue. For that I just used these acrylic marker pens that I got off of Amazon, and the red worked well enough just to paint that back in. There was a tiny bit of overspray, which I'll correct in the next video, and I'll obviously redo the black lines and the red. But if we look in the joints, just using a brush I went and hand painted the bits that I missed with the airbrush. And you would never know that they'd been hand brushed, there's no brush strokes, this stuff thinned out really nicely once it was brushed on. And then I went over it with a little bit of the same gloss clear lacquer that I sprayed into the cap and applied with the brush. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next upgrade video.